Microsoft, we feel that AI has a place everywhere in the business. And we kind of think of it as this magical pixie dust that can help us create these amazing customer experiences. But the challenge with AI is it easy or is it hard? You know, show of hands, who thinks AI is a piece of cake, easy, anybody can do it? No hands, not a single hand. So everybody must think it's really hard. You're pulling your hair out, requires PhDs, requires AI developers, requires a really specialized resource to make AI happen. Well, it's really a trick question because at Microsoft, we feel that ultimately it's you who are going to create these exciting AI scenarios and experiences, not the PhDs, not the Stanford graduates, not the folks that are deep into AI. So the challenge is really around democratizing AI so that any developer can build AI into their applications, so that any line of business person can discover new use cases and new scenarios for their business to make these really exciting customer experiences happen. And so I didn't see any demos during the AI track on Tuesday, so let's try to be crazy and do 4 little AI demos in 4 minutes. So Doran, I actually went through this, and it took me about 15 minutes, so I need you to keep me honest and try to get this done in 4 minutes. So the first one is around vision. And so again, we want AI to be approachable to everybody, right? And the first step is for you guys to get acquainted as to what kind of capabilities I'm talking about. So we have a set of services that are part of our Azure platform, our cloud platform, which we call cognitive services. And cognitive services are these intelligent APIs that enable you to build, again, incredibly amazing, intelligent AI-powered applications. But you don't have to, again, be a PhD or an AI developer. In fact, you don't need to know the difference between a neural network and a social network. It doesn't matter. What we do is provide really advanced, complex AI capabilities wrapped around a set of REST APIs. And REST APIs, if you're a developer, you know these are just HTTP APIs that you can make a call, get a response back, and so forth. So the first category of these APIs are computer vision APIs. They're all about helping your application see, be able to understand images, be able to understand what's in the images, do object identification, face recognition, and face detection, and so forth. So pretty simple stuff, right? Yes, absolutely simple stuff. So with these REST APIs, you take a picture, you make a call to an API, which again, any developer can do, and immediately you get a bunch of metadata related to that image. And so this is a picture of my wonderful friend, Catherine Mitchell, the CTO of Sigma, and she's providing a presentation yesterday. And it's really hard to see. She's small up on the stage, but you can see that the description, you know, is pretty clear. It's a bunch of people sitting around a table. So the computer was able to identify, you know, more or less what is this picture of, and it's fairly accurate. It gives me some context about, well, it's detected a couple people here, and detected Catherine, put a face boundary around her face, so it detected a face. It predicts that she's a female, so good. It's very happy to see that, and she's not here to see that her age. It was predicted to be 41, and we know that is completely wrong because she's been 29 for the last 10 years. It also detected there was a man sitting down, and it actually stayed. So there's a man sitting down on the stage, and this one's probably a little more accurate. He's 48. And so you can get a great amount of context from just the photograph, right, that you can submit into these services. Now, of course, you can train this AI to be better, to be more relevant to your business. And so I can train this AI to identify my devices, my iPhone versus various different Android devices and so forth. So it's very extensible. Now, the second set of APIs, we have a whole slew of APIs around face recognition, right? So we can take faces, identify whether you're wearing a hat or a mustache, male, female, as you saw there, and so forth. But a new set of APIs that we just recently released was the emotion APIs. So we can take a look at somebody's face and maybe make some assertions as to, you know, what emotions or what sentiment is of that picture. So we have these kind gentlemen here who are attending the event. And so this picture was off the TMF website. Are any of these gentlemen in the room? They look very engaged in conversation, right? But look at these guys. What kind of sentiment do you envision these folks to have? So we have Mr. Surprise here. So just based on his face, as humans, we can look at this picture and we can say, yeah, this person seems surprised. And certainly, we'll see that the surprise index is about at 30%. So, it's telling me, yes, this likely is a surprise individual. And boy, this guy looks happy, right? So here we see the happiness index boosted up. And of course, this is super easy to use. Imagine if you're providing customer care and you're able to see your customer's expression. Well, it's probably not going to be any of these, but you can see that it's really giving you a bunch of new inputs that you can take into your applications to make really exciting stuff happen. And now, if you take a lot of these services together, and we just covered 2 of 40 different services that you can use, and again, any developer can use to make really great applications. When you put them together, you can do amazing things like this video indexer service. And the video indexer enables you to ingest any video. It could be anything from YouTube, anything that you produce, uploaded. And now we can use all these services to really build rich metadata on everything that's going on in this video. So here's a TM Forum video that I downloaded from YouTube and ran it through the indexer. You won't be able to hear the video, but that's not that important. But what you can see is we've already extracted a bunch of information or metadata from that video on the right-hand side. You'll see every single face that we detected, so every person in that video is identified. If this was a movie or a TV show or anything like that, and there were celebrities, we have an index of more than 1 million celebrities that we can actually detect, so we know who they are. You can click to see where they appear in the video. Something that's very cool, too, is that we can transcribe the audio. So we can do closed captioning, live closed captioning of what's going on, synchronized to the video, of course, right? And so as the speaker goes on and goes through this process, we can transcribe this text, and lo and behold, we can, of course, translate that to whatever language you decide. And hopefully the internet connection is working. And there's not a voila! I'm on the TM Forum Wi-Fi access point, so my mileage will vary. This probably will stop working very soon. And so pretty exciting stuff. And so if you think, if you're running on-demand streaming services as an example, imagine how much better you can understand your customer by knowing what it is that they're watching. And so you can do all kinds of crazy ad placement. You can do some really exciting things. I'm more than 4 minutes, aren't I? And then the last demo, which I'm going to go ahead and run through now, is incorporating transcription and translation capabilities into your presentation. So this is a Microsoft Garage project, so it's like a research project that's part of the translator team. And what we've been able to do is basically transcribe a speaker real time so that as you listen to my presentation, I can transcribe it to English. And you'll see it on screen, right? So like OCR or closed captioning on the screen. But I can also translate to whatever language I want, and you would see the translation on the screen. What I'll choose to do here, though, is I'm going to leave it in English, so you'll see the caption of what we're speaking in English. Hopefully my PC microphone will pick it up, because that's how we have it set up. But if you'll be able to actually go on your mobile device and be able to translate that to more than 60 languages live on your mobile device. So as I'm speaking and Doran is speaking, you'll actually be able to see translation on your device. You see the link on the bottom. It's actually very small. It's translate.it/ and some digits. And so again, if you go there on your mobile device, you'll be able to read what we're speaking in the language of your choice. So with that, and way over the 4 minutes that I promised, I'm going to hand it off to.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully the transcribing will work and not add any inappropriate words whilst I'm talking. So I want to talk about the role of virtual agents and chatbots for service providers. I think telecom and media companies today are really in a prime position to benefit from AI, but certainly from chatbots. And that's primarily because the industry really needs to transform and improve the customer service, customer experience. Traditionally, service providers have always suffered from a bad reputation in delivering customer service. And I think with AI and with chatbots, I think that will really turn it on its head. No, it does work. I read a very interesting statistic from Gartner that I believe in the next few years, by the year 2020, 85% of customer interactions between customer and company will involve machines, not humans. And I think we've seen over the past few years, chatbots and virtual agents have become extremely popular and very pervasive in all industries and all different company sizes as well. But the reality is that majority of the bots in the market today really struggle and end up leaving customers and users with a bad experience, a frustrated experience, rather than helping them resolve issues, as you can see from this example here. Most of the bots are fairly simplistic. They're based on rules, not real AI. About 3 months ago, we carried out a research with Forrester, the global analyst firm. We surveyed about over 7,000 people, both a combination of end customers, those that had engaged with a virtual agent or a chatbot in the past year, and also service providers as well. And I think about 45% of the service providers were C-level. And the idea behind this survey was to understand the value and the benefits, potential benefits of using virtual agents and chatbots, and to see if there's a disconnect between the two, between what the service providers believe adds value and how they can use bots versus the reality. And there were 3 results that I want to highlight today, very, very interesting results. The first is that, surprise, surprise, that end users believe that that chatbots struggle with complex questions, complex requests. It's fine if it's a simple Q&A type question, but anything more than that, any kind of dynamic dialogue, then the bot will really struggle to answer. The second is that most bots in the market today are not integrated into the back-end systems, which of course means that it's unable to personalize the response and the resolution to the customer. And the third and final one, and Rick talked about this concept of emotional and sentiment analysis, is that bots, or actually I should say the people, the consumers interacting with the bots, have higher expectations from the bots. Even though it's a machine, they actually expect those machines, those bots, to have a better understanding and more of an emotional understanding of their question, of their query. And I'll talk about this a bit later.
Did not work.
You can always use a laptop. And I really like this chart because it shows the chatbot maturity level. And let me walk you through it. So the bulk of the chatbots in the market today really sit within this bottom left-hand corner. They are informational bots. So they're programmed for predefined context, predefined dialogues and scripts, and nothing more than that. And it won't be able to deviate from that question, right? So it's rule-based, it's not really AI-based. So you have a fairly simple question, it will give you a fairly simple answer back, and that's about it. And it will struggle to resolve any complex issue that you have. Moving on to the middle section where it's about personalized. And some of the chatbots in the market today are integrated into the back-end systems, integrated into the CRM, into the charging billing systems. And by doing that, you're able to respond and have a better understanding of the customer's context and intent to resolve the issue. But the third area is where it gets really exciting. And this is where we're talking about a real AI-based and transactional-based chatbot. So not just about customer care, but actually about commerce. Actually includes things like next best action, which Telecom Malaysia talked about. It's able to resolve a customer issue. It brings in multiple AI capabilities like sentiment analysis to better detect a customer's emotional mood and sentiment. And it's able to handle complex intents and really emulates a human-to-human interaction. And by bringing in things like next best action capabilities, it's able to personalize and recommend an action, a promotion, or resolution to the customer without being specifically asked for that.
Well, your pen is working.
If I move on to the next slide. We'll get there eventually. And following that, a few months ago, we launched the first pre-integrated telco-grade chatbot, specifically for the telecom and media industries, called the SmartBot, the Amdocs SmartBot, which is built using Microsoft's bot framework and many other AI capabilities like natural language processing, like sentiment analysis. And I think that's exciting about this is that it includes specific intent, or a library of telco-specific intents, like change of address, what's my bill, all the regular and standard questions that consumers ask their service providers today. What's unique about Amdocs is that we run the core business processes for our customers. So it puts us in a unique position in that we can take all of the data and the data points and fully integrate that into the product catalog, into the ordering system, etc., to provide a personalized response and resolution to the customer. It's also channel agnostic, which means that the experience for the customer is consistent. Whether they're using Facebook Messenger as a channel of choice, whether they're at home, they're using Amazon Echo, they're using Siri on their phone, whatever the channel is, the experience is the same and consistent throughout. And a third area is, I talked about telco-specific dialogues and intents, but also bring in things like other cognitive services like NLP and machine learning to really make it a powerful engine for customer engagement. And I want to show a very, very quick kind of example or a demo that brings this to life and explains what we're doing with it. So we're taking a scenario. Okay, a customer is on Facebook Messenger, and he's messaging this chatbot. And the NXT communication is a made-up service provider. And he's written, "I'm so frustrated, someone stole my phone." Now, the customer hasn't explicitly asked for anything, but automatically, the chatbot is translating his intent into an action. In this case, it's offering the customer the chance to suspend the subscription. Okay, and you can see further down, there's two boxes that the customer can click on suspend, or he can ignore it and say, "No, thank you." So the customer clicks on suspend, and the next thing that happens, and again, this is where it gets really interesting, is that, again, the customer hasn't explicitly asked for anything. But the chatbot understands the context of the conversation and understands that the customer doesn't have his phone. He's without a phone, so let's offer the customer a new phone. Okay, and this is where we're talking about going from customer care to commerce. But it's not offering the customer any phone. It's integrated into the CRM, so it knows what kind of phones the customer likes, what they've purchased previously. And it knows that this customer has purchased Samsung phones. He likes Android, not Apple phones. And so it's offering a personalized phone to the customer. Again, the customer hasn't explicitly asked for anything. This is all about converting intent into real action, and it incorporates real AI into the mix. Rick, can you give us a very, very quick overview of ways that service providers can measure the success of chatbots?
Yeah, so how many folks here either work managing the call center or have worked in that kind of a role before? So as you probably are aware, customer service, customer satisfaction is peak. Average handling time is absolutely critical. There's no call center in the world, there's no call center manager that's never ever looking to not reduce average handling time in some way. The number of calls coming into the call center, always an important metric. How can you deflect a number of those calls in order to move them to perhaps a self-service channel or a lower cost channel? Those are all critical KPIs that they're always top of mind when you're managing customer care in some meaningful way. And so this is my friend Ryan. He's a call center agent for Microsoft Service and Support. He's a very happy guy because he's a call center agent. So you know those are the happiest people in the world. He's always got a smile on his face. Right now he's probably talking to some grandmother somewhere, helping her through the latest phishing attack, or she probably opened an attachment that she shouldn't have. Very patient guy. But what are some of the challenges that Ryan and folks in the call center come across, right? First and foremost is really acquiring some level of consistency and accuracy, being able to have a high quality across every single touch point, every single phone call that's addressed at the call center. It's a really, really tough problem to handle because, as you guys know, call centers are very distributed. They hire thousands upon thousands of people, particularly if you're a large tier one. Tough problem. All the KPIs that we just covered, and I'm going to go through here. Turnover is a serious problem in call centers. This is not an easy job. It's very stressful. You're dealing with people who tend to be irate. It's a very special personality type that's required in order for you to be successful as an agent. And so the stress really does cause a relatively high turnover for this industry. And we have this thing where we count on the agents themselves to be an integration point across all the different applications that they have to know how to use and how to manage. And so we call it swivel chair integration. You have 3 apps open. The agent has to copy data from one app to the other. It's a big challenge, which results in really, really high training costs. So it normally takes a period between 45 to 60 days of training before a call center agent will handle their first call on their own. So it's a really lengthy cycle. This results in escalating costs and companies treating the call centers, more or less like cost centers. It's something they have to have, but they're not entirely thrilled to have. So at Microsoft, and of course, we run call centers as well. We're a service provider. We service more than 1 billion customers. So you can imagine our phones are always ringing off the hook. We're always looking at ways to optimize this. And working with telcos, with retailers, with other customers that have large call center presence as well. And so in Secretive Building 7 in Redmond, we've been developing a prototype of the next generation call center, which we call the CSR 1000. And so the CSR 1000, it's actually the second version of our agent, since the first one wanted to terminate their callers, and that was having a negative impact on churn. And so what do we really mean by this cyber agent? What makes them better? It's not a Terminator. You can call Microsoft, really. We won't have that guy on the phone. It's really around taking the bots themselves and the capabilities that Doran mentioned, but apply them in the context of the call center and create virtual agents designed to help the human agent be more productive, be able to have a better interaction with their customers, and ultimately lead to a more satisfied customer, a shorter call, and so forth. So you can think of it as kind of a utility belt or a set of robots that are helping the agent be more productive. And so it all really starts with one of the things that we described earlier and what you saw. It's the transcription of the live call. And so once we have that transcription in place, we can use that as an input across a variety of other bots that are helping the agent be successful. Around transcription, we can transcribe not only the caller, the customer that's on the phone, but as well as the response that we're obtaining from the agent himself or herself. One of the first use cases for real-time call transcription that we did was in a call center, and we did real-time translation. And if you guys are familiar with call centers, you know that many of them are outsourced, offshore. They're running in a lot of different countries, the Philippines, Mexico, India, and so forth. And the agents that work these call centers are amazing, and they're multilingual. They have really high level proficiency across 3, sometimes 5 languages. It's really amazing to watch them work. And although they're very proficient in many languages, they're not necessarily native speakers. And so there's always a bit of extra work and a lot of CPU cycles that agents spend translating what their customers are speaking. And so by implementing a transcription and translation service that's able to provide the agent with a translation to their native language of whatever the customer is saying, we found that it relieves an enormous amount of stress, of pressure on the agent. It improves the clarity because now the agent has basically a confirmation of what they understood being translated by a machine. And it enables them now to free up some of those CPU cycles to better understand and listen to the customer concern. And so that's proven to be a very effective use of some of these AI capabilities and the AI-enabled bots to, again, make that customer experience better. The next scenario is around the pen not working. That's the scenario. Now, the next scenario is around using that same input, that transcribed speech, to be able to understand the context of the conversation. So we can take, for example, a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph of what's been spoken and extract the most relevant terms from that specific bit of speech. You may have seen in the video indexer that we're able to identify what are the key words from that video, from that conversation, from whatever it was that we took. And again, this is using some AI capabilities in order for us to really understand context and understand what's important. Now, now that we understand what's important, we can have a bot that's doing interactively a background knowledge-based search to try to identify what potential KB articles are relevant to this case that can help expedite the closure. And then there's a variety of other use cases that we've implemented in the call center where this AI capability, again, has enabled us to do recommendations, next best action, next best offer, be able to do call quality rating. And most interestingly, one of the things that Dora mentioned is around sentiment analysis. So we can take a look at the transcript itself and run sentiment analysis on that based on the words, but we can also listen to tone. And so does the customer sound agitated? Has their tone changed? You know, the pitch changed? And so forth. And based on that, we can perhaps route the call automatically to a shift supervisor or a manager to handle that specific call. So all sorts of scenarios are possible with AI and with bots that are there to help the agents, your human agents, be more effective. And so here's a very short video that describes, oh, you won't be able to hear, unfortunately. And what's happening in this call, since you can't hear, is we have an irate customer contacting the call center about an issue that they're having. And on the right-hand side, you see where we can take that conversation and immediately make it actionable. So we can measure sentiment real time, again, based on text, based on tone. Because we're transcribing the call, we're able to extract keywords and be able to automatically generate recommendations that the human agent can offer. What's the next best action, perhaps, that they should do based on the transcript, based on what's going on in that call. And so it's a really exciting way to add a great deal of support to the call center agents, the human call center agents who already have a very stressful job. Now I'm going to talk very briefly about one of our customers. This is 3 UK, a part of Hutch. And they've been exploring the use of bots for a very long time. We did a hackfest with 3, trying to determine, what's the best scenario that we can build together to kind of put our toe in the water, per se, kind of start trying these new bots. And what we discovered with 3 is that one of their top call generation situations were new SIM activations. So they found that new SIMs, every time that they sold a phone, every time that they added a phone to a plan, it generated either a call or a human interaction via their self-service chat on their website. And so it became a very costly operation. So it seemed like every single new phone that was being activated was immediately hitting their margin. We looked at this scenario. They had a great deal of metadata, of data around what they do. They had transcripts of self-service chats. And so we were able to use all that data to create a bot that was very, very simple. It was an automated chatbot that knew how to activate your SIM. And it knew everything possible based on all the historical data that we had around how to activate that SIM. Things related to, do you need to port your number? Do you have a device that perhaps is SIM locked or that it's locked in any other way? And it was able to guide the user using natural language in order for them to ultimately be successful in activating that device. And so you can imagine if you can, again, deflect a substantial number of calls from or self-service requests that actively need to be handled by a human to a bot across a very, very small scenario, the impact can be very significant. And so for them, they used this as a starting point. It was really successful. You can see it on their website live today. But they're using that as a building block. And now they're using the same framework in architecture to add additional features to the bot. So in the future, you'll be able to check your bill, you'll be able to add services, and so forth. So it's a great scenario and example as to how you can use this technology. So with that, we're going to close with maybe some best practices related to how you can go about building your own experiences around bots for both consumers as well as your call center agents. And it all starts with this little plant. You got to start small, pick the specific scenarios, and then iterate. Iterate and make it better over time. Never, never, never try to boil the ocean, as they say, and start trying to create the Uber bot that's going to handle every possible permutation. Don't for a second consider that you're going to create the next Siri or Cortana or Google Assistant. That's not the intent. You need to create bots that are really very targeted and very specific towards your industry. Like you saw in the 3 example, pick that one specific use case that's really impactful to your business and then build upon that. And be sure that you can do that one thing very, very well to eliminate that frustration that many users have when they start using these automated bots. Providing guidance is absolutely key. When you fire up a bot and you're having a chat session, it's just a blank canvas. What can you do? There's no Chrome around that. There's no back button like there is in a browser. And so provide some guidance to the user as to what you can do. What can this bot do? In the case of 3, hey, I'm the bot that will activate your device, and that's what I can do. Also be very transparent and very clear that this is a bot, and this is not necessarily a human, in order to earn the trust of the users. Don't hide that from them. Next, make sure that you offer a ripcord. That means provide a means for escalating to a human agent as necessary. And be proactive about this, because we can measure sentiment, right? And you saw how that's very easily done. Be proactive. So if you sense any kind of frustration, offer to transfer that individual to a real person. And then finally, iterate over the initial use cases as well. So as I mentioned, you'll be building use cases over time, but you'll always have to go back to those initial use cases, take all of the new data that you've collected, all of the learnings, retrain those models, and make those bots even better. And that's ultimately going to create even better experiences for the users, for the subscribers that come after. And then finally, Doran?
Yeah, just to wrap up, we've talked about chatbots, and it's an exciting solution. But I think chatbot is one product, one solution as part of a broader series of AI capabilities that is being used to optimize contact center operations. So other examples are you can leverage AI to auto-detect patterns that enable you to proactively engage customers, to deflect calls in the contact center, to reach customers before they have a chance to pick up the phone and complain to an agent in the contact center. And this is where the machine learning algorithms can be used to detect issues and patterns before they arise. Other things like enabling or improving the life of the agent in the contact center, giving them all the capabilities like sentiment analysis like we showed in the video before, like machine learning scores to detect what's the risk of churn, what's the risk or the chance that they're going to purchase a new device or a new bundle. And also things like MBA, next best action as well. That is really helping the agent to personalize the response and provide a great experience. And with that, you can download all of the materials in this link as well, everything that we presented today and additional materials like the Forrester research. Rick, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely take questions. We've got a couple minutes maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any questions?
Yes. There are 3 things that I would like to know. First, I think your demo is demonstrate about the video, but you collect some people recognition in the face, maybe emotional, is happy or not happy. But is it possible to implement to the vehicle that we would like to put the CCTV on the toll route, and based on the CCTV and the video, we can collect numbers of cars in order to detect is it the condition is traffic jam or not. Maybe if I put CCTV on the traffic light and then numbers of vehicle in the traffic lights is more than 50, maybe it's traffic, or less than 20 or 10, maybe it's less not traffic. Is it possible if implement to the toll? And then secondly, I would like to know you have some translation to the some language. Is already to Bahasa? Due to I'm in Indonesia, I think is any NLP in Bahasa, I think can implement also to Indonesia.
So on the second question, catch me after, and we'll go through the languages that are supported. The language support across cognitive services vary depending on the service for various different reasons, but we'll check the specific service that you want, and we'll see if the language is supported. And for the first question related to being able to extend the AI capabilities of the video index or any of the other computer vision APIs that we have, absolutely. That's something that we support out of the box. And so we have a custom vision service that enables you to build on the capability that we provide. You don't have to create your own model. So we have a baseline model that can already detect or understand the world around us. But if you have specific needs, like detecting cars, moving vehicles, and counting them, whatever your scenario is, we have the capability for you to train that model for that specific use case. And I have some excellent additional videos and documentation that I can share with you.
Great. Do you have any more questions? I've got a question for you, and I was thinking about this as I was writing. It's to either of you, and I'm actually an operator's worst nightmare because I'm the person who keeps pressing 000 right on everything until it gets through. And I've been working in customer experience for over 10 years, and you know, one of my big questions I have for you is, I've got two actually. First of all, how much is this about improving the customer experience versus reducing cost for an operator? And I think that's a really important question as we learned on this digital journey. And my second question is, where do you start to migrate your customer? Because if you're like me, right, and I'm a millennial, just about, I think, and I'm pressing 000, how do you stop me doing that and then start migrating to this technology?
So Aaron, in your case, we're going to set the Terminator agent on you, and that's going to solve our problem. So that's an easy one. More seriously, related to your point. So by the way, I think you're an edge case. Millennials, far and foremost, would prefer never to have to talk to somebody on the phone. And that's, generally speaking, at least in the US, that's where most of my experience is in the call center. But it is rare that you will find a millennial that would prefer to speak to somebody on the phone than to resolve their issue themselves using Telegram or texting or whatever other mechanism they have. So they do tend to gravitate towards these newer channels better than some older individuals. Maybe you're an old soul, Aaron. That's my best guess. But you want to add?
Yeah, I think as bots get more intelligent, more pervasive, and people are used to it, then people will flock to getting their answer online or on the bot or home on Amazon Echo. And they'll call if it's a very, very complex request, complex issue, where they don't believe they can get a good answer or a timely answer using the chatbot, using the virtual agent. And by the way, cost is also a big driver. It depends on the service provider, but many providers are looking at, yes, improving Net Promoter Score and just ensuring that they have a better reputation in delivering customer service. Others are looking at reducing the costs. I think one thing that people get scared at is that it will replace huge numbers of agents in the chatbots, in the contact center with chatbots. And I don't think that's quite the case. I think it'll augment it rather than replace the agents. And I think actually the agents I think they'll want it. I think they're fed up of dealing with all these repetitive calls that they get and having to repeat the same answer every time. And actually, the chatbots will resolve the 20-30% of those rote repetitive tasks and leave the agents to deal with the more complex resolutions, which they want. They want to be stretched. They want to be challenged, not having to deal with the same boring kind of requests.
I think it's interesting because, and when we talked about that, because one thing we've seen in the UK, which is really interesting, I spent a long time researching and writing on customer experience, and, we went, and it's something, that you mentioned, Rick, earlier, was that, outsourcing, right? So for service providers in the UK, the biggest thing to do was to outsource. So all the call centers actually went to India. This was a big thing. The worst customer experience disaster in the history of telco. What's happened now? It's all come back. And it wasn't just telco, it was banks, it was everything else. So this is go back to my question of this migration, right? Because the first thing they did was outsource everything to India. It was terrible. It all came back. And what was the USP for telco for a long time in the UK? Our call center is back in the UK. That was a USP for a telco, like call centers in the UK. It was the same for banks and other things. So how are we going to migrate on this journey? Is it going to be we start using chatbots and then we start saying we have real people, we're not going to chatbox you? So how does service providers understand when it's appropriate and how to migrate? That's the one thing I'm still not sure that we've addressed.
I'm not sure. It's certainly not the case in the US that they've all come back. I think you have a certain subset of call center agents and call centers that remain in operation in the US, but by far the majority has left, and I don't see that coming back, at least in our view. That said, you have a very, very important point there is how do you ensure that the experience that people get using a chatbot isn't a negative one? Because if that happens, then you're going to have a similar experience as to what you described. And we covered that at a certain level, ensuring that, again, you provide very specific and guidance around what this chatbot can do to ensure that you build that trust with the individual, first of all, to use it, to not shy away from using it, as you're mentioning, hitting the 000. Give it a chance, and it's entirely up to us as an industry, as we move forward down this path, to create experiences that are truly exceptional and mind-blowing, and not experiences that are going to leave users frustrated. And it's something that we can do together. But the fact that we're seeing such an immense demand, and just for context, so I work across all Microsoft Server products as they're employed in telecommunication solutions. All of them. More than half my time in the last year has been all around AI and bots, because there's increased demand from our service provider customers to help them build these experiences. So they're huge. Granted, a lot of it is, there's a lot of hype, and so we're close to getting to the peak of that hype curve. But there's also reality there, and that these things do work. And if implemented correctly, they can not only reduce your operational expenses, as you mentioned, but create some really just amazing customer experiences. And that's what ultimately is driving a lot of the investment.
And just one final thing to add, I think this time next year, or maybe in 2 years' time, I don't think we'll be having this conversation over whether we outsource or not. I think the conversation will move on to something else, along with the idea of virtual agents and what percentage of the resolutions can be managed online versus in the contact center.
Great, thank you. Big round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.